Welcome back to another episode of What Are You Made Of with your boy, the unstoppable Mike C-Roc. I got an unstoppable guest in the house. It's a friend of mine, Glenn Lundy. Yeah, that's that guy from the Breakfast with Champions Clubhouse. My favorite place to be in the mornings. Glenn, welcome to the show.
Bro, thanks for having me. Absolute honor, man. Absolute honor that you would choose to share this space and time with me. I appreciate you so much.
Yeah, man. And look, the energy that you have right now is amazing because, you get up early. You have 8 kids. You got your hands full with a lot of things, which, I can relate to. So I only have 2 kids though.
Dude, I got 4X times that, dude. I remember when I was a part-time parent. That was fun.
yeah, but yours are easier kids. Mine are like really high maintenance and like just bullheaded and hard-headed and stubborn. And so, so you come from the car business and you have a podcast. It's called Rise and Grind, right?
I do. Yeah. Hashtag rise and grind.
And you're a Raiders fan. So this is the intro. I'm giving you an informal intro here.
Beautiful. I love it. Yeah, it's perfect. You hit the nail on the head.
We start the show with the same question every time. We get a different answer every time. Glenn, what are you made of?
Bro, it's a great question. I think I'm made of about 40% street because I spent a lot of time in that in my life. I'm made of 20% husband, 20% father, 20% businessman, and 100% child of God, bro. 100% child of God. That's what I'd say I'm made of.
Love it. I love it, man.
More street than husband and father. You notice that, right?
Yeah. I'm sure. Come on now. Yeah, you don't ever let all the street come out of you, man. You know what I mean? Like it's just right. The way it is. So, the champions are champions not because of the accomplishments, but because of the things that we've gone through and overcome. And that's what champion means to me. I've read that before. I believe in that. And that's what makes you a champion because, I know some of your story, but I'd love to share it with the audience. Take us back as far back as you want to. Diapers, crawling. I don't even care how far, but I want to hear about where you came from. I want to share that with the audience. And, a lot of people see that you have a successful show. You have a successful clubhouse room, consistent clubhouse room. And people just think that just happens. They don't see all the work that's gone into it. They don't see all the years and years and years that have gone into that show, really, even though Clubhouse just came out.
Oh, yeah.
So take us back, man.
Yeah, man. So, I grew up, interestingly, my dad was in the military. My whole family was military. I'm the only one that didn't join the military. And so I grew up that way, traveling around a little bit when I was young, different places. And then ultimately my dad being super strict, bro. Like we used to have to ask to get a drink of water, ask to use the restroom, ask to take a shower, all of those things. And my dad was brutal too, man. He had a heavy hand. He had a really heavy hand. He grew up the youngest of 13 and he just had a certain upbringing that he brought to the table. And so I grew up in that type of an environment. And it wasn't until I was 11 years old that my mom decided to get us out of that. And so when my parents got divorced, it was interesting, C-Roc. So my mom is white, my dad is black. My dad, after my parents got divorced, my dad married a black woman. My mom married a white dude. And then my mom and this dude moved into Green Log Garden Apartments in Flagstaff, Arizona, apartment number 28. And then my dad and his new bride moved into Green Log Garden Apartments at 2600 East 7th Avenue, apartment number 30. So my mom and her new husband in one apartment with me and my sister, and 2 doors down was my dad and his new wife and her 4 kids, and they ended up having 2 more kids together. So every stereotype that you can think of, C-Roc, existed in these 2 houses. So I had an all black household and all white household. Dad's house was like loud, Motown, gospel, collard greens, fried chicken, Kool-Aid, anything you could think of, right? Kids everywhere. That was Dad's house. And then Mom's house was like country music, rock and roll. Mom sitting on the couch whistling show tunes, right? Like it was totally crazy, man. And I was growing up in between these 2 cultures, and my parents were serious about it. Friday at 5:00, C-Roc, my mom would say, she would tell us, y'all got to be out. Like we'd have to pack a bag and walk 2 apartments over with our suitcase, and we were at dad's from 5 p.m. on Friday until 5 p.m. on Sunday. We're like, Mom, we don't even have a place to sleep over there. Like, there's 8 kids and 2 beds. Like, what do you, we have our own rooms over here. Can we just at least sleep here? She's like, nope. If your dad lived across town, you wouldn't be staying in my house. So I don't care. He's 2 doors down. You're going to walk your little tail end over there and don't come back till Sunday. So being raised in this really interesting, unique environment where I had access to both cultures in just a very rare way, C-Roc, it caused a lot of problems for me when I was young because I just faced a lot of identity issues, right? Like my skin was too dark to be white, it was too light to be considered black, and so I never really fit in anywhere, and I kind of became one of those chameleons that, if I was hanging out with Hispanics, I get a little Hispanic accent. If I was hanging out with the brothers, I was a brother. If I was hanging out with the rich white kids, I could play that role too, right? I could play any of the roles, the cowboys, the bikers, the whatever, you name it, I could fit in. And that led me, not having an identity led me to getting into a lot of trouble, man. A lot of trouble as I got into my later teenage years, early 20s, in and out of jail, and the drugs and the chasing women and all of those things, which ultimately led me down a path, a little bit later in my 20s, it led me down a path of I ended up really depressed, and I ended up homeless at one point, and the homelessness led to hopelessness. Hopelessness led to suicidal thoughts. Suicidal thoughts led to a suicide attempt where I tried to take my own life, and all of those things that kind of come along with this lack of self-worth and understanding of who I was, and yeah, man, and so that was kind of me all the way up until my late 20s, my early 30s, and had some wake up turnaround moments like I think we all do in our lives, and been able to build a pretty solid foundation since then to where I'm at now.
And how old are you now?
43.
Okay, yeah, I'm 44, so I'm right in that. Right in that. I relate to all of it. 11 was my thing that happened to me with my dad. Same kind of thing. Broken family every other weekend. Child support, custody battles. Then you add the step parents into the mix. People don't remember,
Yeah.
like, realize that part of it. The agendas that they have for their lives that they go throw into the pot, and a lot of it's just sprinkled down onto the kids or poured down onto the kids.
Right.
I can relate to that so much. One thing about me, I grew up too in until I was about 11 in southeastern Pennsylvania outside of Philly, and it was a lot of Latino kids, and that's who I hung out with. And then I moved into Maryland when I left my dad's house, and I didn't know who I was supposed to hang out with because there wasn't Latino kids in Chesapeake City, Maryland.
Right.
It was white and then a minority black student population, and I started hanging out with the black guys. And then I got my ass whipped because I must not have belonged in there. So it was confusing for me too. I will tell you though that what got me, and when I was 18, I went to college. I didn't drink at all until I got to college. I was so freaking focused and dedicated to my purpose that I got into a place where I started seeing girls, because we didn't have a lot of girls in where I lived, and
Right.
parties, and it was so fun at first. Sin is so fun at first, man.
Oh yeah.
And then my friends started leaving. They started going on their way, and I was stuck with the party crowd, the people that were left over, and hated myself, hated my life. It was so dark. I can relate to what you're saying, man. And that turning point that I had was meeting my wife. I've been married 18 years. Like, so what was the turning point for you? Do you remember one specific, or was it many? Like, what was the one thing that you can remember and look back on and say, man, I'm so glad that happened?
Yeah. The biggest thing was, at the end of my little homeless stretch there, and I did try to drown myself in the Pacific Ocean, and when I was literally like plucked out of the ocean and placed on the beach there, I realized a couple things about my situation, man. I realized, how big the universe was and how small my problems actually were. That was one of the first things I realized. And then I realized, you take yourself wherever you go, Glenn. Every city that I'd been in, every group of friends that I was with, the results always ended up the same. Me in jail, me high, me drunk, me sleeping with some woman I did barely knew her name, right? Like it was always the same, even though the environment changed, the people changed, the cities changed, all of that. And so once I realized, like, okay, wait a minute. So I'm not a victim. in this whole thing. Like I'm actually the root cause of all of these problems that I have in my life. Like as soon as I realized that, then the student in me, because I love to learn, the student in me was like, okay, wait a minute, hold up. If you are the catalyst of all things negative in your life, Glenn Lundy, then maybe, just maybe, that means you can be the catalyst of good things in your life. And so I had to start learning like who I really was. I had to get an identity. I had to understand self so that I could figure out where this power comes from, this ability to create. Where does that come from, right? Why do we have that in us? And that literally sent me on a journey, man. I read a book called Dianetics by L. Ron Hubbard, which somewhat controversial book, and it's attached to Scientology. I studied Scientology for 6 months at the Orange County Church of Scientology, and that church, Scientology, ultimately helped me to understand that we are spiritual beings, not just mind body, but mind body spirit. And ultimately, I ended up leaving Scientology. Just wasn't a perfect fit for me, and started to explore other avenues of spirituality like Buddhism and Christianity and so on and so forth. And it wasn't until I finally figured out whose I was. Once I figured out whose I was, and my path to spiritual enlightenment, which I know everybody's is different, but in my path to spiritual enlightenment, once I received that, right, that last missing piece of the puzzle, then it was like, oh, okay, all right, I can go from here. So that was the big pivotal moment for me.
Yeah, and you still carry some of the L. Ron Hubbard principles with you, even though it wasn't for you to continue on with that journey. Do you still carry some of that and understanding of that and use that in your life,
All day,
or
every
some of
day,
the
man.
technologies?
Yeah, all day, every day. I still
Yep.
teach. I teach a lot of it too, right?
Hmm.
I took a communications course there that was absolutely phenomenal, and I teach a lot of my salespeople and dealer salespeople in the auto world. I'll teach them, the art of communication, what that looks like. I
Hmm.
also teach a lot about the subconscious mind versus the conscious mind, which really, if you go back in time, strip away all the crazy talk and whatnot and rumors and theories and whatever around Scientology, strip all that away. If you go to the root source, this book called Dianetics that helps you understand the subconscious and the conscious mind,
Hmm.
it's really impactful, man. It's really impactful. And everything that was built after that, whatever, man. I have some of my nearest and dearest friends are deep, big time Scientologists. And I
Hmm.
love the way they live their life. I love their philosophies and their strategies. It's just different for everybody, right? And
Hmm.
it wasn't for me. It works for them. And so I follow the things I learned in that 6 months of my life, C-Roc, have literally been like instrumental in me being able to build my own business and now have a relationship with my wife that we've been married for 10 years and be able to be a good parent, a good father. All of those things really came from that 6 months, initiated by that 6 months of study. No doubt about it.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this about me, but I was one of the fastest to get through Dianetics and the course and all that. So I'm a
Nice.
Christian. I grew up in a Catholic church. My mom introduced me to Jesus when I was 5. Asked Jesus into my heart when I was 5, and from there, I've had my ups and downs like we all have, but never truly lost the relationship. And I have a great relationship with Jesus now. But I still study, man. I still
Right.
study. I believe in bringing everything I can into my mind to be able to determine what I want to put together, and so that I can thrive for other people, to exemplify what it takes to keep accomplishing. And one thing, Glenn, I look at is I think we're naive to think that God put us on this planet with limited intuition, limited spirituality, limited abilities. Now, physically, I'm 5'6 3/4". I'm almost as tall as Grant. He's not as wide as me. But but physically, yeah. But at the end of the day, I think we're naive to think that we're limited on anything. And uh, I
I
don't want to,
agree, man.
when I wake up in the morning, and you talk big about morning routines. And when I wake up in the morning, man, it is my duty and job to give everything I got to what God's given me. And I'm going to use every resource available to me. And I don't worry about, I share everything, because some people tiptoe around religion and what their thoughts are. I don't care what people think. I'm more concerned with what people experience with me. And you're the
Right.
same way. I can see that with that. So
100%, man.
yeah, yeah,
100%. Like who are we? I just want to put this out there since we're on this discussion. Who are we to put the God of the universe in a box and say that he can only teach this way? He can only teach through this method. Like, I think that's nonsense to me. Like,
yeah,
if we want to put ourselves in a box, put yourself in a box. But the
yep,
God of the universe can do whatever the heck he wants to. And if
yep,
he
yep,
wants to bring me to spiritual enlightenment through a freaking Dianetics book, then that's what he's going to do. If he
yep,
wants me to bring me to him through the Church of Scientology, that's what he's going to do, right? Like, we don't get to choose our path to spiritual enlightenment. And I I don't want to say I take offense, because I don't take offense to anything, but when people try to take my God, like my personal belief, and stick them into this little tiny box, I'm like, bro, you need to back up,
yeah,
because
yeah.
that's not a conversation I'm interested in having.
Yeah, now talk about that offense. Think about what kind of world we would live in if people didn't get offended. You know, like how much
Right.
I think that's true freedom when you don't get offended by anything. Like understanding that when people say stuff, they're really talking about themselves,
Right.
and you should feel bad for them maybe and offer a hand to those people instead of getting offended and all worked up about it. You
Right.
know, and so what are your thoughts on that?
You know, again, or not again, but the way that I grew up, I am blessed to be able to see things through other people's eyes, right? Growing up in different cultures, and I've been in and out of jail and homeless and all of those things. And so what you just said is probably one of the most important things that anyone could learn, is that when someone is speaking, they are sharing their experience, theirs. They can only see the world the way they've seen it, right? And their experience is completely different than yours, and no one's is better. No one's experience is better than anyone else's. So yeah, living in a space, I was having a conversation with a friend the other day. A friend of mine the other day made a post on or shared a post on social media that was talking about the biblical biblically defined sin of homosexuality, right? And my friend shared this post, and my friend came to me and said, "Hey, did you read this?" And I said, "Yeah, I looked at it." And they said, "Well, what'd you think?" I said, "Well, first of all, I thought it was kind of weird that you shared it." And they were like, "Well, why would it be weird that I shared it? I mean, it's a Christian look at why this is sinful and so on and so forth." And I said, "Well, let me ask you, are you homosexual?" They said, "No." I said, "Then who are you to speak on what they feel or they're like?" I will not speak to anyone about their sin. Like, I'll speak on the things I know.
Yeah,
I'll speak
yeah,
on the,
yeah.
like, I can talk to homeless people. I've
Hmm.
been homeless. I can talk about drug use. I've been a drug user. I can talk about having kids out of wedlock and sleeping with random women. We can talk about all those things, and I can tell you my perspective on those things, but I can't tell you my perspective on homosexuality. I'm not homosexual, right?
Hmm.
Who am I? Who am I to speak on that? And so my friend was just kind of like, "Yeah, but I'm like, "No, yeah, but it's like, it's not even just a matter of he who is without sin throw the first stone. It's even further than that. Don't speak on something you are not. If you haven't experienced it, then you have no right to tell anyone else how they should feel or how they should experience it. That's my belief. So not taking offense to things that you know nothing about, I think the world would be an amazing place if we could do that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my thing is to just love everybody, man.
Yeah,
Just
man.
just love
That's
everybody.
it.
What can I do to help you today? What can I do to make a difference and elevate you? And if you decide to do things a certain way, it's up to you. And if it works for you and elevates you, great. If it doesn't, then let's switch it up and figure out what works to elevate you.
That's
You
it.
know, and so many people have their minds shifted based on other people and other people's opinions, and they're so easily swayed with the wind, man. And
Oh yeah.
so I
And
have
you
a
know what I
word.
think it is,
Yeah, yeah.
C-Roc? I think that
Mhm.
people feel like in order for them to be right, someone else has to be wrong.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It's almost like Grant Cardone talks about abundance, right? He says that everybody can win, right? There doesn't have to be a loser, right? It's
Hmm.
not like if I take $1,000 that someone else has to lose $1,000. It's not how it works in money. And I think that we've built a culture in a society where people feel like I've had people message me since Breakfast with Champions. I've had people message me and say, Glenn, you have to take a side. Like, you have to support the black movement. You have to support Black Lives Matter. If you're not with us, you're against us. And I'm like, whoa, I don't see the world that way at all. Like, there doesn't have to be someone wrong in order for someone else to be right. You and I can both be right, C-Roc. We can both be right, even though we might disagree. We can disagree about something, but still both be right, because your experience and your perspective is based on how you like on your life. And my experience and my perspective is based on my life. So what's right for me is right for me, and what's right for you is right for you. You don't have to be wrong for me to be right, and I don't have to be wrong for you to be right. And I know that can get complicated for some people, but that's just the way I see it.
Your truth is just a story that you tell yourself that you can live with.
That's it.
That's what the truth is. Now, people think, and I used to think, the truth is a fact, and you got to argue that, and you got to be right, man. You got to be right more than successful, more than elevating yourself. And at the end of the day, like, even in sales, we know this: the best thing to do in sales is agree with someone, even if you get on a common playing
100%.
field with them, connect with them, and so when I stopped worrying about being right all the time and worried about being successful and elevating me and myself and others, everything changed for me as well. So, and I'll tell you, like, I don't know, man. I just think loving people, man, that's what it comes down to. Like, it's very simple. And, for me also, if when I wake up in the morning, I have a clear picture of what I want in my life, right? And this is what I teach people and I work with people on, and I know you do too. But clear picture, and then you make decisions, binary decisions, towards or away, building or destroying. It's very simple, making life simple. And then, the other thing is, how do you feel though when you see somebody that is maybe not speaking an opinion, but being disrespectful about speaking up, and there's a line there as well, right? Because when it comes to respect, somebody saying to someone, disrespecting them or being out of line in that manner. I used to be a regulator when I was in college, man. I would be the first person to jump into somebody's face if I saw them disrespecting one of my friends, or
Sure.
I'm not proud of this, man. But I would just hit somebody if I knew something was going to go down. And, but nowadays it's more about, if you're in a room or you're somewhere with someone and somebody's being disrespected, just trying to speak up and stick up for someone, but also diffusing the situation and just getting out of the situation.
Yeah. 100%, man. I think it's important that level-headed, open-minded humans step in a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, right. Instead of just watching the, for example, the debates, right? These political crazy debates, you see these two children going at it, calling each other's names. And like, it blows my mind. We have anti-bullying campaigns all across America, right? Hundreds of millions of dollars are being poured into anti-bullying campaigns. And then we show the two people that are running for president literally calling each other names and bullying. That's all it is bullying. Political campaigns are all about bullying, talking trash about the other person, belittling the other person, making them feel, less worth. And so I would love it if we could find all of the people that love people like you and I, the people lovers. If the people lovers of the world could just maybe speak up a little bit right there in the middle and not say you're wrong, you're right, but just say, hey, right now you're at a 10, we need you at a 2. Let's talk about this, and to actually allow people to feel valued, allow people to feel seen, heard, and significant. That's the key. Allow them to feel seen, heard, and significant, but do it in a civil way where we're human to one another versus, everything having to be a freaking fight.
You said heard. That's a big one. Listening. If people would listen more.
No doubt.
Just, hear that. So how do, when you're by yourself, what are some of the thoughts that go through your head and the talk that you talk to yourself about when you're by yourself?
Oh my gosh, dude. It never turns off, man. How long we got on this podcast?
Yeah, I know.
You know, I really believe we have a born on date and an expiration date, and that dash in the middle is impact. That's the meaning of life. People say, "What's the meaning of life?" I believe the meaning of life is the positive impact you have on others. That's the meaning. That's the meaning of life to me. And so, in my head, in my thoughts, if I'm being lazy, right? And here's my definition of lazy, just so everyone knows. Lazy is when you're not doing anything that moves you towards your best vision of your life. Okay. That's lazy to me. Lazy is not defined. You can't say just because somebody hangs out at a beach every day that they're lazy, right? Maybe their desires to be a freaking surfer, or maybe their desires to own a bar on a beach one day. I don't know. Everybody's perspective is different. So when I find myself doing like literally nothing, not sitting on the couch watching a movie with my kids, that's a good thing.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
investing time into the children. You know what I'm saying? But when I find myself doing absolutely nothing, those are the types of things that'll race through my mind. It's like, who's losing right now because you're not winning? Who are you supposed to be making an impact in their life right now, and you're not, because you're sitting
Mhm.
around here freaking doing nothing? Like, can you call somebody? Can you send out a text that just says, "Hey, C-Roc, was just thinking about you, man. Just want you to know you're a freaking great guy, and I'm cheering from you. If there's anything you need, let me know." Right? Like, there's so many things we can do in such a connected world right now that doing nothing to me is the only option we don't have. Like, do
Yeah,
something. Send a
yeah.
text, send a Facebook, stand up, work out, take care of your health, eat better. Do something that moves you towards the ability to make a bigger impact with your life on this planet.
I think this might be controversial too, but I think it's evil not to going
Mm,
for your potential.
yeah.
There's good and there's evil, and I think that it's that bad to me. Now, do you feel the same way sometimes, where you feel like you're not doing enough, no matter how many accomplishments, how many people say, "Glenn, you're killing it." When I hear C-Roc, you're killing it, like that's a sign to me that I gotta be careful, because I don't want comfortability and complacency to set in. And every morning I get up, I'm obsessed, like I'm not doing enough. I got to do more, not get more, but I got to do more. You
Right.
ever had that feeling?
Oh, dude, 100%. I believe that we are most comfortable in life right before death. And I experienced this when my grandfather passed away. He died from cancer, and I won't go into the whole story, but I watched him pass away. And when he passed away, he was comfortable. The moments before, he was in pain, he was sick, all of those things, right? But there was a brief moment. It didn't last long, but there was a brief moment just before he passed away where he was comfortable. The pain all went away. And so I recognized that, and I noticed that a professional athlete that gets comfortable gets fired. A husband or wife in a relationship that gets comfortable, they end up getting cheated on or they get divorced, right? In our jobs, if we get comfortable, right, we're like, we just think that check's going to come every 2 weeks. That's when we freaking get fired, right? Like, we are most comfortable in life right before death. And so anytime I find myself comfortable, like what you're talking about, "Oh, you're doing great, you're killing it, everything's freaking amazing," I'm like, nope, I'm not ready to die yet.
You turn
I
it
still
up.
got places I want to see. I still got
Yeah.
people I need to impact. I still got stuff I got to do. So let's freaking go. What can I do today? What can I do today that is the most uncomfortable thing for me? What is the one thing I really don't freaking want to do? I'm going to go do that right now, because I want to stay in a constant state of uncomfortableness, because
Yeah.
that's where the growth exists.
Yeah, baby. All right, final question. Before I do this final question, though, where's the best place for people to reach you? Clubhouse?
Easiest thing to do really is I wrote a little ebook about the morning routines. I think they're really important. So if you go to themorning5.com, you can download my free ebook, The Morning Five, 5 Simple Steps to an Extraordinary Life. It'll tell you a little bit more about me. Plus, you can get something out of the book. It'll help us get connected. And then, of course, that'll connect you to all my other social medias and so on and so forth.
Great. Go get it, guys. Go get it. Let's support Glenn like we do all of our guests. The rocket fuel law I created, a law is a law because it works, right? I had an interview with Grant back in April of last year, and I talked to him about what's it going to take eventually to get into outer space. And what I meant by that is he talks about gravity a lot, and that the suppressors that pull you back, and that's why you have to have a graph that's always on the uptick, because life will happen, gravity happens, it pulls you back down. You cannot have a flat graph; it'll fall. And he said, I don't know if people are really ready for that conversation. They don't know. They don't want to hear the answer to that, you know? And I started thinking, and I'm like, well, we got to get into outer space, man. The only thing I know to get us into outer space is rocket fuel. And how can we get there? We can take all the garbage that comes our way, negative, letdowns, discouraging people, screw ups of our own, and we store it in our tank instead of our trunk where it weighs us down, where most people store it, so that we can convert it into rocket fuel to become unstoppable. Now, I wrote the book about that. Grant wrote the foreword, and he wrote an awesome foreword about what that means to him. But I added something recently, and I got to do a second book now because of this. But there's a line of demarcation, I'll call it. At some point, when your engine goes from being I'll say a Ford Focus. No offense to anybody that's driving a Ford Focus, but it just doesn't need the same fuel as a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. There's a line of demarcation at some point where your engine gets upgraded from the work that you do to yourself, from your experiences or whatever, and it needs a cleaner fuel. It needs a higher octane fuel. So at that line, you stop using all the toxicity of the past. You start using the stuff that you're going for in the future to pull you forward. All the things that you want to accomplish, all your goals, all your targets, they start pulling you instead of pushing you. Sure. And so I got to add that to the book. But what does that mean to you? The past part, and then hitting that line of demarcation where you're starting to get pulled forward instead.
Yeah, when I think it's important that everyone, excuse me. Sorry about that. That tickle came up. Quit. I believe, C-Roc, I believe that there's a divine plan, right? That we are spiritual beings, not just mind and body. And in that divine plan, there are certain things that have to happen in order for you to create the scars, the calluses, the bumps, the bruises, the scrapes that are ultimately going to be needed for you to be able to leave your mark on your next generation, on the legacy that you're going to leave, right? So for example, my dad, hard-handed, rough dude, man, rough dude. And I went freaking through it. And I would never do that to my kids. I would never treat them the way that he treated me. But at the same time, if you think about that, him treating me that way has now created the life that they have today, where they are getting poured into. And I don't know what plan God's got for them, but I know he's got a plan. You know what I'm saying? So everything had to happen in sequence in order for me to end up in Kentucky, meet my wife, have these 7 babies that her and I have had together, 8 babies total. But to have them and to be able to pour into them the way that I'm able to only came from my dad's decisions 40 years ago, right? Does that make sense? And so that fuel is required. All of that sticky, nasty, messy, volatile stuff is required to propel you to a certain point. Now, here's the problem. A lot of people stay right there, right? Mm-hmm. They keep all that sticky fuel, whatever. They allow it to hold them back. And just like anything else, you'll flood it, right? You'll flood the engine if you keep giving it gas. At some point, you've got to let it go so it can do what it's designed to do. And so I think it's a combination of explosions are needed early to get you where you need to go. And then ultimately you have to use that momentum now, right? Like you're talking about, to start really reaching and stretching. Remember that it's there, but allow the momentum from it to carry you towards those new targets and aspirations.
Love it, baby. Love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today, Glenn. If there's anything you ever need, I'm always available. Hit me up. I just appreciate you. I appreciate the space that you've given everyone. It's just been obviously life-changing, as you've heard from many testimonies from people that have been in the Breakfast with Champions. And I'd be happy to contribute anyway, anytime you need it. So thanks for coming on today. You guys have been listening to the What Are You Made Of podcast with your boy, the unstoppable Mike C-Roc, and the unstoppable Glenn Lundy. Keep coming back. Subscribe. Go to the YouTube channel. We're putting up more content talking about tech now. Non-tech entrepreneurs, you can be in tech. Go check it out. Mike C-Roc, Ciorrocco. Until next time, be unstoppable.